Hi, I'm Micah Clark with American Family Association. Appreciate you joining us today. I have a dear friend with us who is my counterpart in Illinois. And I think it's really good perspective. We've just ended our Indiana General Assembly here at the end of April to hear from a fellow warrior fighting for the same things AFA of Indiana fights for to the west of us in Illinois. And I hear a lot of people complain about our Republican-controlled legislature, and I get it. Republicans disappoint sometimes. There's things you wish they would do. They have these opportunities that they miss. Sometimes they don't go far enough. But you're going to hear a totally different perspective today from what it's like to be a pro-family warrior in a Democrat-run state house. And the things that David fights, I would not want to do. I pray for him. He has a tough job. Our Indiana General Assembly seems like heaven to him, I'm sure. If I listed all the things we got done, he'd be shocked. But David Smith with the Illinois Family Institute, great to see you. Good to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. And not only do we kind of envy your makeup of your General Assembly, but many of our Illinoisans are making their way across the border into Indiana to call it home, the Hoosier State.
That's good reason. There's a lot of tax benefits and other benefits. But now tell me the makeup of your legislature. What are the numbers in the House and Senate there? Sure.
There's a supermajority in both chambers of Democrats, so it's even veto proof. In the Illinois Senate, you need 30 votes to pass a piece of legislation, and of the 59, there's only 19 Republicans.
Oh wow.
Yeah. In the House, I'm not going to remember the exact numbers. There's 118 state lawmakers, and they need 60 votes to do it. And I believe they have 72 Democrats in the House. But so that makes it very interesting.
You're playing defense probably 90% of the time.
Yeah, so we have, if you go to our website, illinoisfamily.org, and there's a rotating ad that one of them is our Springfield update. It lists all the legislation that we're following, the ones we support and the ones we oppose. The ones that we support never even got a hearing, Micah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the fact, pro-life, pro-family issues that we'd like to support, but they don't even get a hearing.
That's sad. Well, one of the big issues that caught my attention, and your session just ended on Saturday, and it was kind of up in the air the last few days. The House, I believe, passed an assisted suicide bill. And we've had an assisted suicide bill here filed 2 or 3 years in a row from a Democrat in Bloomington. It doesn't get a hearing. But in Illinois, that is a very hot issue, and you had a huge battle on your hands. Tell our audience about the bill and what it proposed to do.
Well, the bill is, again, it's been introduced multiple years in a row. This is the first year it's really had traction. And I want to point out, too, that this is a nationwide push in multiple states across our nation. We've got, I believe, 12 states now that have approved assisted suicide. They're looking in Delaware and in New York and other places to pass this. Of course, Illinois, they would believe, is low-hanging fruit. And so this bill would allow physicians to prescribe to a terminally ill patient with 6 months to live to be able to take a lethal dose of medicine, not an injection, but pills. And they have to be able to take it themselves, so they can't be disabled. They can't be on a feeding tube or anything like that. They must be able to do this. 2 consulting doctors, but their term for consulting necessarily isn't a medical doctor, but a pharmacist, a clinical social worker, a mental health professional. Can be the second reference saying, yes, they qualify for, medical aid in dying is what they call it. We call it physician-assisted suicide in Illinois. We're not going to mince words. It is absolutely aiding in suicide. So that's what we have pending in Illinois, and the Democrats used many sob stories throughout their testimony. We've had 2 hearings in the House. We had 2 hearings in the Senate. and then they played games and put the bill in a shell bill so they could get it rammed through in the last week of session, but it got hung up in the Senate. Praise God. So just to, I told you the numbers that the Democrats have in the House. It only had passed by a vote of 63.
Okay.
63. So kind of short. I mean, skin of the teeth, you might say. They pass it in the House, and then it went over to the Senate where it got stalled out.
Well, you were very kind in how you described that bill, because from what I've seen in Canada, in Europe, even in Oregon, they will pass a bill like that with these proposed guidelines, and then they come back oftentimes and they either want to add the disabled, or they want to take away, or you find out that they're not following those guidelines. People are being killed who were not terminal. The other thing, when you were speaking, that raised my eyebrows is, how does a doctor even know if you're going to live 6 months? There's people who get diagnosed, they're going to live 6 months, they live 6 years. So
we all know people that have had those
right.
kind of diagnoses of terminal 6 months to live, and then they leave 6 years later or even longer.
Mm-hmm. So was there a concern that these guardrails would be cast aside, or was there any teeth? Was there teeth behind it?
No, they had safeguards in the bill, but this is our problem. Is they claim that that they won't be abused, there will be no coercion. How do you guarantee no coercion, right? But we know from Washington State, who has had it the longest, right? Kevorkian, Dr. Kevorkian, that it is an ever expanding list of people who qualify. Qualifications, that's what I should say. The list keeps expanding, and the qualifications expand, so that all of a sudden we're talking about people with arthritis. Arthritis,
right.
Being able to say, hey, I want out.
Right.
Are you kidding me? Or
now,
those
Dave,
with depression.
How much of this do you think is driven by budget deficits? I mean, this is a key part of socialized medicine. We more or less have socialized medicine in America. We're very close to it if we don't.
Yes.
Certainly Medicaid and other things.
Yep.
It always comes up in the European countries, other places. It's easier to kill somebody than it is to pay for their. So is this? Are they open and saying this is a way that saves money?
Oh no, no. In fact, they're trying to avoid that part of it, because it's very evident to many people, even some of the Democrat lawmakers. We had one state senator confidentially tell another state senator who we work with that it's a racist bill. That they believe it's targeting the black community, the poor black community. It's going to wipe us out. I just wish she would see that with the abortion agenda too.
Yep.
But she didn't. But this is so. There's a lot of concerns with even some of the inner city minority state senators. So that's a good thing. But as far as saving money, that's so evident. It's cheaper to kill you than to treat you. But I also believe, Micah, that this is part of the devil's agenda to destroy any image of God on the earth he can. And it's an anti-population agenda that is being pushed throughout the nation.
Well, David, I'm sure this entered your mind, at least it entered my mind when I was interviewing you. You have a very special gift in your family, baby Owen, who has Down syndrome. Beautiful, beautiful young boy. The boy could do commercials. He's but
maybe one day, who knows?
Yeah,
we're in speech therapy, Micah, so we're working on it.
Well, I mean, you have to think as a parent, I know you think about what happens to him 30 years, 40 years down the road. And we see this where at first it's those who are terminally ill, but the next step is the disabled. Was that brought up in the debate?
Oh, yeah. So part of the coalition of those working against this bill was the disabled community from Chicago. They were a huge part of it, including the Catholic Conference of Illinois, the Illinois Right to Life. They were a very big part of all this. But, some of the disabled were in the Capitol lobbying, some of them in wheelchairs, going to see their lawmakers and saying, hey, this is coming for me eventually, And I think that was a very persuasive part.
So what do you think swung the Democrats who maybe were pro-abortion or prone to this? I don't know about, in Indiana, all the Democrats are basically pro-abortion, probably the same way
Yes.
in Illinois. So what, you didn't get all the Democrats' support. What do you think pushed the pro-abortion Democrats to stand up for life, if you will, in this sentence, although they wouldn't say that, but what caused your Democrats to move on this?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, I'm going to give credit to God because of prayer.
Right.
I really believe that prayer made a huge difference. I put out prayer alerts along with the action alerts, telling people pray, act, pray, in that order, and I put out a video as well on Thursday before the end of session, which was Saturday. Actually, it didn't end until 1:30 in the morning on Sunday,
Typical.
Micah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I put out a prayer request video as well and say, please pray with me. Just pause and let's pray about it. And it struck me, Micah, on that Saturday morning, the last day of session, May 31st, State Senator Willie Preston from the south side of Chicago made a short reel as he's walking into the Capitol that morning saying, I made my decision. I've heard from my constituents. I'm a no vote on this assisted suicide. Now, he was on our target list, right?
Good.
We wanted to convince him. That was a relief. But then he went on to say, I'm going to talk to my colleagues because we should never play God. So there's a fear of God still among some of our state lawmakers. And we have a lot of responsibility, and with that comes a lot. Let me put it backwards. We have a lot of power here in the state of Illinois, the General Assembly. But with that comes a lot of responsibility, and we should never play God. And if he indeed talked to some of his colleagues, the Black Caucus, for example, holy cow, it could have been the difference maker because, Micah, we were counting the votes, and I'm telling you, we were 2 or 3 votes short or away from them being able to pass the bill. And those, we had like maybe 5 to 10 lawmakers that we considered on the fence or persuadable, and we were working on that, and it certainly hurt. Now, let me just tell you this, too. A good state senator named Chris Belkema, who's a freshman, and a good, solid Christian man, he confided in me in an email, and I got permission to use his name on this. As he said, Dave, my Democrat colleagues were coming up to me after the session ended and said, I was convicted. I could not vote for that bill. Wow. Micah, you and I can't convict the hearts and minds of man.
That's right.
That's the Holy Spirit's work.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
And so give credit to God. And of course, we want to thank of all of our friends who are working against this as well. But, I'm a little dense. I'm slow on the uptake sometimes, Micah. I've seen God work in response to prayer before. And, I don't know why I don't focus on that more often here in Illinois, because obviously nothing is too difficult for him, but the situation you and I, or the rest of the pro-family Christians here in Illinois are facing, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's more than difficult.
Well, most people in Indiana know your Governor Pritzker. He's talked about possibly running for president. Did he come out, did he make a position on this, or what do you think he would have done with the bill?
No, he hasn't. I think, I wonder if he didn't want this bill to come to his desk because it could have hurt him in the long run. However, the polls do say, and he has been very overt, going to New Hampshire already 2 times to make speeches, and he has been red meat for the Democrat base. He has given them everything they wanted to hear. So if the polls suggest that Democrats are in favor of compassionate death type things, he may have embraced it, I would think.
I'm just curious, did you have any medical groups, doctors who said this, we don't want to be a part of this?
Yes. Oh, Mike,
it goes against the Hippocratic Oath is first do no harm. They're there to save life. What did some of the doctors say?
All right. Well, 2 things. You've heard of the Christian Medical and Dental Association, right? Well, they put the word out to their members here in Illinois early on, and those members got very involved. In fact, the Illinois State Medical Association, which is an 800-pound gorilla in Springfield when it comes to lobbying, They had their annual meeting, I believe, in early April. They voted overwhelmingly to oppose this.
Good.
And Mike, I'm telling you that because I think those Christian Medical and Dental Association members had a huge impact on how the vote went in spring in their association meeting.
They've probably seen the abuse of this in other states and in Canada, where this has just gotten out of control. Yeah.
Well, what we're doing is normalizing suicide. Dr. Matthew Epinet from Trinity International University's bioethics department, I forget the name of it right now, he testified about suicide contagion. Micah, have you ever heard of this?
No, I've heard of transgender contagion.
That's right.
Same,
Right.
yeah.
But same thing.
Yeah.
You know, once the state normalizes and legalizes suicide, it's almost like a permission slip for people, and we see suicide rates. And I thought we were very concerned about teenage suicides and veterans suicide rates. Are we not?
Right. Yeah.
Why is it bad over here but not bad over there? It's not
Sends a
good.
bad message. Yeah.
It does.
I've come to believe if you have to normalize something, it's not normal.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Well, let me shift gears. Another major battle that you won, and it's of great interest to a lot of our viewers because it comes up here as it does in other states. You had a very serious threat to home education this year. Can you tell us about that, Bill, and what specifically the legislature proposed doing to homeschool freedoms?
Yeah, so again, this is another nationwide push in various states, especially free blue states. You know, Illinois happens to be one of the freest states when it comes to homeschool freedoms. You know, we have to do a certain amount of hours every year. We have to do a certain core curriculum, and that's it. We don't even have to report that to our regional office of education or our local school districts. But this piece of legislation was based on so-called abuse, anecdotal stories, right? Stories of horrible abuse going on, and these families claim to be homeschooling, and therefore government needs to come riding in and be the knight in shining armor and save the situation. So this bill would have required that homeschool families register every year with their local school or regional office of education to tell the state what they're doing, but that it would also open them up to inspection and curriculum review and that kind of stuff. And if you didn't file this form with the state of Illinois, you would be considered
truant.
When you're absent from school. What's the word?
Truancy.
Truant. Thank you. That's the word. It blanked on me. So So if you didn't file this form, you would be truant, which the penalty for that, if they would prosecute, would be up to a $500 fine and 30 days in jail. How about that? So as a homeschool father, I don't want to comply. So you're going to send me to jail? Okay, well, let's do it then. But the state has no business looking over my shoulder, especially when we know that they're failing. The proficiency rates for math, in science, in reading are horrible. Most of our schools are failing well under 60% proficiency in any of these subject matters. We also have a horrible situation with sexual assault of government employees, school officials, mandated reporters, by the way, on the kids in the schools. So until they get their house in order, they have absolutely no credibility to be able to sit there and say, we need to exercise oversight on your families in Illinois. Absolutely zero. Illinois homeschool families are a bright spot in the state. I can tell you just, again, anecdotally, but my oldest son, when he went to community college, after he graduated high school, he was asked to tutor public school students who didn't do well in math and had remedial math. So, and he loved it, by the way. So anyway, it was fun. It was good.
I saw a stat the other day. Someone cited this. They didn't give the source, but it's probably true. You may know it. But they said that more than 24 schools in Chicago do not have a single student who is proficient in math.
Yeah, that's Wire Points, which is a great organization. They have been doing a lot of reports on these kind of things, and and yet, and Micah, we're paying between $16,000 and $25,000 per year per student to get these, despicable results.
We pay 12 in Indiana, so you're paying significantly more with lower scores and worse results. The whole idea that more money fixes education builds better buildings, but it doesn't fix education.
Micah, I probably spend $2,000 to $3,000 to educate all my kids. There's 5 of them left in between grade school and high school left. It's not that expensive. And by the way, those history books and those literature books all can be handed down to the next. You can save them and hand them down.
Well, I assume, are both these issues coming back again next year? Are you out of session until? I know you told me you do a budget every year, but you're coming back in January, so this is not done.
Typically, it's January through May 31st is our session. They'll come back in the fall, either October or November, for a veto session. But as I told you earlier, Micah, that there hasn't been anything our governor hasn't liked to sign into law. So there's no real reason to do veto session. So yes, I like to tell people never say dead. I know some of my homeschool friends are cheering, and I cheer with them, but they say that the homeschool bill is dead. It's not dead. Right. Nothing ever dies in Springfield. If you don't believe in resurrection, you haven't been to Springfield. It resurrects, and so we need to be vigilant, and especially with the assisted suicide bill. That was our number one concern this year. It made it halfway. It made it through the House. It's now in the Senate, and so it'll just pick up where it left off next January, is what I assume. Could come up sooner, but I'm projecting it won't come up until January 2026.
Well, those are two issues that we've seen here in Indiana. We've fought here too, not to the degree you have, but they have the same mindset, the same groups pushing them. Before I let you go, I want to let people know how they can learn more about Illinois Family Institute. But was there any other issue you wanted to bring up? I know you had a dozen that some of them were quite scary too. Any other issue you'd like to let our audience know about in Indiana?
Well, you might hear a groan from your listeners here in a minute, but one of the bills that didn't make it at all, even to a hearing, was a bill to legalize prostitution in Illinois.
That's right. Yeah.
Prostitution. Crazy. So, Micah, not only will we have the neighborhood saloon next to the mini casino, because those places now can have slot machines, next to the weed shop because marijuana is legal. Now we're going to have a brothel, and our main street is going to be just so family friendly. Right. So I mean, this is crazy. It didn't go anywhere, but they're starting. This is the beginning of trying to prep the state lawmakers for this idea to give sex workers rights, right? And that's what they want to say.
Well, think about the message that sends to children.
And of course they're teaching comprehensive sex education in our schools, kindergarten through 12th grade. This is all a result of that too. They're encouraging them to experiment, which only leads to horrible things. For example, STIs, sexually transmitted infections. If you go to the Cook County Department of Public Health website, the first thing you see on there, or close to it, I don't know if it's dropped down, but was a warning about syphilis and gonorrhea rates. Wait a minute. How does that happen? Right. Let's see. And we're going to legalize sex work? Right. Are you serious? The other bill, real quick, there was 4 that we were very concerned about going into the session, and then that was tier 1, and then a bunch in tier 2 and a bunch in tier 3. But the next one is the legalization of psychedelic drugs. Okay. Magic mushrooms, Okay. Micah, I don't know if your insurance rates, car insurance rates have gone up in Indiana, but mine have gone up tremendously in Illinois. And I believe it's directly tied to the legalization of recreational marijuana here in Illinois. We've got inebriated drivers on the road. I can smell it. You go into certain areas, even on the expressway,
Yeah.
you can smell the cars in front of you
Yep.
who are token up.
Yep.
And it's really kind of scary because it affects your fine motor skills.
Right.
And it doesn't just last 24 hours like alcohol. It can affect your fine motor skills for 72 hours or longer. And so we're putting people, you come home on a Friday, you smoke up and think, oh, I'm just going to relax for the weekend. And then you get back up in your car on Monday. Guess what?
Yep.
Your
You're
motor
still impaired.
skills aren't at its peak level.
Yeah. Well, we're fighting that here too. We stopped a bill that would have legalized hemp because hemp products, and it would have shot the THC levels. Because these companies come in. This is not the marijuana of the 1960s. They've genetically modified this stuff. THC levels have gone from 3% in the 60s up to 16, 18, 20%. And people are having schizophrenia, other things. It's just a Pandora's box we don't want to open here. So,
You ever heard of scromiting?
no.
It's a hypernemesis disorder is what it's called medically. We had a doctor from Colorado, an emergency room doctor, come out and testify for us after they legalized marijuana out in Colorado. And she said every shift she has at least one case of scromiting. Scromiting is a combination of screaming and vomiting at the same time.
Okay.
It's an allergic reaction to this high potency marijuana. And there's products called shatter, dab, and wax, which are 99 to 100% pure THC, which they put into a vape pen, a vape whatever instrument, and toke up on it, and you can't smell it. It doesn't smell like normal marijuana does, and this is having a horrible effect on young people.
Someone I encourage you to get in touch with or interview that we interviewed is a lady named Laura Stack. She has a group called Johnny's Ambassadors, and she told me she knew somebody who went to California or to Colorado in her 40s, thought marijuana was like it was in high school, tried it one time out there. She wound up in a psych ward for 2 weeks because she dabbed it.
Yep. I mean, they even recommend these little gummy bears that are now THC. Cut it in half because you don't want to get too big of a dose. What?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And kids get a hold of it.
What kid is not going to take a whole handful of that, right? And put it in their mouth.
Yeah. Well, David, God bless you for the work you're doing. You're one of my heroes. We get your emails all the time. We watch your videos. You do great, phenomenal work. If anybody has family in Illinois who's watching today, please get in touch with the Illinois Family Institute. Tell our audience how to do that to become a part of the army that you have over there.
Well, thank you, Micah, and I appreciate your battle in Indiana. You've got to keep it free and an option for all of us over here in Illinois.
Right.
But you can go to illinoisfamily.org, sign up for our emails. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a Rumble channel just in case YouTube goes back to its old ways. Anyway. By the way, Mike, I don't know if you know, there's a movement in some of the counties in southern Illinois to join Indiana. And I think Indiana has given a thumbs up. At least some of their legislators have. What do you think of that?
Oh, give us a few more red districts. We'd be a red state forever. Because southern Illinois is just like, there's Trump signs everywhere. It's very conservative. You have the tail wagging the dog with Chicago doing all your politics.
We've got a couple called Chris and Mary Miller. Mary Miller is in Congress, and she is a Freedom Caucus member, and she is so good. And her husband is a Illinois Freedom Caucus member in the state legislature. So they're doing some great work, and we don't want to lose them. So anyway.
Right. Yeah, we never thought Illinois would agree. This was just sticking our finger in your eye. So. I appreciate you joining us. You're a good friend and you do great work. Again, the Illinois Family Institute Director David Smith is with us. And thank you for joining us today. We will have links in the bottom to Illinois Family Institute for you to click on to send to family members in Illinois. Please get on their email list, support them. They're doing the Lord's work over there. And David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Micah. God bless.
Well, Micah Clark, thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And again, encourage you to pass this on to family members in Illinois. Sign up for Illinois Family Institute's email. Sign up for ours as well. If you know people in Indiana who want to fight similar battles here, let them know about the work we're doing too. But again, hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us today.